And we seem to be live. Okay, let me just double check that. We should be good. Please stand by. Come on. Refresh. Yep. Okay, we are live. All right, I'll be right back, guys. 1 second.
Hey, Jonathan, I can't. I'm having trouble finding the slides. I did find the scanned pictures, but I can't find the slides.
I can't remember who was that on your machine or?
I think it was on my machine. I had some kind of problem where like I lost a bunch of stuff, but like so I have a folder called Edu Design Slides, and it has basically all your pictures that you drew. So all of them are here, but I think I can't. I'm not sure I can find the.
Well, you know, we should probably set up a shared folder and just dump everything we have in one place.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I did create one actually. I think I shared it. Let's see. Yeah, there's a MatchMAKE share folder, and you know, let's create it.
Yeah, there it is. I see it.
Another folder which is slide images. I'll try to put all these things in there.
Well.
I think Chris joined us.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Chris.
Hi. So we've got Jonathan and Kevin.
Yes.
That's right.
Nice to see you. Where are you?
We're both in Massachusetts.
Oh, nice.
And you?
I'm in Utah.
Ah.
I'm a high school English and media teacher in Utah.
Cool. I'm a maker and consultant, and I do workshops and various. I build things, make things.
Yeah, I see your workshop there. That's pretty cool.
See the microscopes and.
Oh, good. Chris is here.
Hey, Paul. So, Jonathan or Kevin, I see looking at the background of looking in your workshop, it looks like you've got like a microscope and a spool of something.
Oh, this is, yeah. We have lots of wire. I've got a 3D printer. It's called an Ultimaker 2, and there's an oscilloscope, the usual electronics detritus on the desk.
This is Kevin's bedroom, though. That's not. So, Chris, you met my new friends. That's cool.
I did.
Tons of Arduinos hanging around.
Arduinos. There you go.
Yeah, 3D printed whistles.
Where do you keep your Arduinos? Okay.
Nautilus gears.
Wow. Did you print those?
I just printed those. Yeah. I didn't design it, but it's something I downloaded. But
wow.
I can show you something I made. Hold on a second.
Paul, are you getting some background noise in my
Yeah, I like it though. Not as much as I liked your guitar solo. It wasn't a solo, actually, was it? Or was
Yeah, I got some of my students to play with me.
it?
So this is something I made for the Bay Area Maker Faire. I made this for Make Magazine. They were using it for their Maker Camp. Do you know the Maker Camp?
I've heard of it. I've never.
Not enough.
So it's a sort of online summer camp. They have a project a day, and they have field trips and stuff like that. Anyway, they were promoting it, and I made this. It's a photo booth, and it's got a Raspberry Pi and another board I make, which is called a a la mode, which is an Arduino that plugs onto the Raspberry Pi, and it takes your picture and uploads it to the web and gives you a chance to send it to you as an email and stuff like that. So, and the box is made actually with 3D printed little corners that we designed.
Wow.
My little group. So.
Look, I'm going to interrupt you and start.
All right, go for it.
I love that idea. And others will be joining us, I hope. But
Like Joe just joined us.
Nice group here. Oh no,
Oh,
she left.
Dope.
Maybe she'll come back. It's all right. I was surprised she's here already. She had an exciting evening.
Yeah.
We'll hear about, yeah. Well, cool. But anyway, welcome to Teachers Teaching Teachers. This is the official start of Teacher Teaching Teachers tonight. It's May 28th, 2014. And I'm calling this an ideation, which means, I don't know, I was a little tired when I was putting this together. No. So we have with me and us friends, new friends, old friends, and we're going to talk about connecting, if I can say it that way. I will introduce people, and we'll get around to saying who everybody is here and what our theme is, but there are people coming in right now, so let's make sure that it's all working. If you guys don't mind, let me introduce, I'm going to call you guys the design shop, right? A team.
Sure.
We have an official name here, but and then we'll get others in here as well. But Victoria, hi.
Hi.
Hi. Victoria, we were just doing introductions, and I know you just got here, but introduce yourself. We're a team of 4, and I think we called ourselves what? The
Magma Core.
Magna Core. But that didn't go too far. But anyway, I mean, it was a great idea. Anyway, so everything's a great idea. So, Victoria, you're an MIT student. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us why you're here tonight?
Sure. I'm a freshman at MIT, or I guess now I'm going to be a sophomore, and I'm studying computer science, so I'm really interested in technology and how that can be used in the classroom. And I did robotics in high school, and that was a big part of what got me interested in alternative education, I guess. So that's why I took part in the design shop.
Cool. And somebody's going to help us define design shop here in a second. Education design shop. Just say what high school you went to.
I went to Castellea High School in the Bay Area. They have a pretty big lab that's involved with the lab at Stanford on alternative learning.
Yeah, so that some of the connections we were making too. Kevin, if you don't mind, introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Kevin Osborne, and I'm a longtime engineer, but I've also gotten really interested in teaching about making, which I think is really a powerful concept for learning all kinds of things. It's sort of a gateway to learning anything because it requires math, science, art, design skills, things like that to make things. So, and it's interesting because you get to make stuff. And so I quit my job about a year ago, and I've been doing designing workshops mostly for libraries and things like that, as well as continuing to consult and do create products. And I'm very interested in open source. I do everything I develop for the libraries and stuff like that. I publish on my blog, baldwisdom.com, and I went to the Edu Design Shop thing at MIT, which was an interesting workshop that was free, but you had to get in. And so Paul, John, Victoria, and I all got in, and we were formed into a team where we were to use the design principles that we learned at the workshop to solve some problem in education. So
that's a good introduction. Great.
Cool. All right.
And right before you were showing us what a great room you're in, maybe you will get a chance to shuffle around in there more. Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Schmidt. I'm a director of technology at a K-8 school in outside of Boston here, and we're really interested in design thinking and making, and how we can bring that to our students. I taught for 7 years before becoming a director of technology, and then I was at the EDU design shop. I was lucky to be selected, and also lucky to have a few students who, some of our middle schoolers who took part in the workshops and the teams as well.
Chris Sloan, welcome. You want to say hello?
Yeah, so I teach English and Media at Judge Memorial in Salt Lake City, Utah. And as far as making goes, a lot of the media that we do obviously is about making products, whether they be video or audio or print things. And then also this year, coincidentally, I did a lot of reading around kind of studio approach to education. So experimented with some kind of studio thinking and design thinking in both the English classes I do, and then also in the production classes that I do. And then lastly, this summer I teach in Ireland, and we're going to connect with a maker space called 091 Labs, which we connected with last year in Galway, Ireland. So I'm really interested in what you all have to say about design thinking and making.
Very cool. So we were a team of 4, led by, say her name for me, guys. Who was our leader? Do you guys remember?
We had a facilitator.
Yeah, what's her name? Sorry, we'll look it up here in a second. That's what we get for being so casual. Monica Hardy has joined us, and Joe Paricio is joining us. Joe had a really exciting evening with some awards out there in Oakland. But Monica, do you want to say hello? And Monica, if you don't mind, are you frozen or are you there? Hello? There you are. Monica? Hello? You're trying to get in? She's working on it. All right. So, as organized as ever here, but I think we have a great group of people, and we're going to make this happen. So we came up with an idea, and then they gave us a bit of cash to further the idea. The cash doesn't matter so much, I don't think. Maybe it will, I don't know. But so this is our kind of reunion, getting back together, and the idea that we came up with was MatchMAKE. And Kevin, you were our spokesman on that. Do you want to talk to us about what MatchMAKE is a little bit?
Sure. I guess it started with, so one of the ideas that we had was to create project-based curriculum that would allow people to make things and stuff like that. And then, but the problem is that in implementing that, some teachers may not feel comfortable with the skills that are necessary, and it also kind of limits it. So we had the idea of actually bringing the idea of connecting people, makers, people who artists, inventors, people who make things together with teachers to work out interesting projects that they could use in the classroom. And then the end goal of that would be that they would actually create materials that other people could then reuse, and it would be a whole community, and people could sort of review this stuff, add to it, remix it, things like that. And we pitched this with some brilliant hand-drawn slides from Jonathan, and we actually were one of the sort of the top winners, and we actually have we won a small prize that we were hoping to figure out some way to make use of. So that's is that a reasonable?
That gets close. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think without going into a lot of detail, we want to also talk about the problem we were trying to solve, the problems we were trying to solve.
Okay, sure.
And one of them I think is like who a maker is. Like when we look at your behind you, Kevin, there, we know you're a maker, right? And you're an engineer for all those years. But we were trying to think about adding to that list and expanding the idea that it's not just people who do, I don't know, the fabricating kind of making, but it's other people in the community, perhaps, who could be makers. So as you can tell, this is an idea that is still in the making, but as we go. But Jonathan, maybe you could talk about a project that you did. I was kind of struck by the story you told at one of our sessions where you were able to find like an expert in the field come in and work with your kids. That's kind of an example, yeah.
So one of our science teachers, we became really excited about design thinking, the design engineering process this past year. And one of our science teachers decided to kind of flip her entire classroom around a central question and kind of take that question to wherever it would take the class. So the students try to figure out how they might map all the trees on the campus into a physical way, and we kind of got ahead of the students a little bit and tried to figure out some possibilities that they might come across. We let them kind of explore dead ends and bring themselves back to a core and really let them kind of lead the way. So in the end, we had students looking into, is an iPad GPS accurate enough to map the trees accurately? Is a what's the professional level kind of mapping backpacks that the professionals use, and is that either financially feasible or worth the expense? And in the end, we brought in some experts to help our students as they kind of tackle these questions, and we had a surveyor Skype in with the class. We had some professionals who had done some work at the school before meet with the class, and then I kind of came into the class as someone who knew a little bit about GPS technology and explained how it works and how accuracy can be affected. It really, the science teacher and I actually did a presentation on this, and I'll post a link to the presentation just a couple weeks ago at a technology conference in Vermont. And one of the things that she really took away was that any expert is entirely fascinating to the students and really captivated the audience. She tried not to take it too personally, but she found that bringing experts in really that met a need that the students had identified was really important. So instead of just saying, hey, I think it'd be great for you to talk to this expert, have the students identify a problem and then meet their need with somebody who has the answers, and it really activated the whole thing. The students became interested in the subject, and then the expert was especially, vibrant because they were solving the problem that the students needed.
Cool. And if I haven't identified yet, it shouldn't all be coming back to me every time, so please keep breaking in. But let me get Victoria to speak up again. What's sort of your take on our idea and what you've thought since, maybe?
Sure. So I really like the idea because, I just got out of high school and I could see something like this working very well. Just in terms of having people from industry working on projects with students in the classroom. It's hard for me to think of any specific examples of times like that I actually had experiences like that in the classroom, but outside of school, like with robotics, working with mentors and things like that, I think that was really valuable for me. So that's why I think this is a cool idea.
Can you tell a more specific story about that when you were?
Sure. Let's see. We worked with a lot of different mentors for robotics. Like one person who, my neighbor actually has a shop in his garage. And I think he kind of was. I think he was really excited to work with us because he's kind of just doing his own thing and isn't really utilized by anyone else. And he's really skilled at welding, woodworking, and stuff like that. So I kind of just asked him if he could teach me how to weld on the side, and I thought that was a really cool project. And I actually learned a lot about the science of welding and how all the different metals work and stuff like that. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and I want to bring Monica in here as quickly as we can, but she has played with the word, and I like the word synchronicity, but that's what I think you just described there. But how did you know about that neighbor, and how did you get him involved, and doesn't he have a job? And, I mean...
So I'm not quite sure. I guess we're family friends with them because they live right next door. And he had mentioned that he had a shop a couple times. I had seen his garage because he welds right next to my house. So I'd seen him welding before. Thought it would be cool to learn. And so I just kind of asked him about it, and he started giving me welding lessons. I guess he did have the extra time. I would also help him with projects he was working on, so I could learn how to weld by helping to weld some of his projects for him. But yeah.
Cool. Chris, do you have any? Can you help us? Be
I
the
guess.
person?
Well, from the outside, and because sometimes I need things repeated, I mean, the problem that you're seeing, that you're all coming at from different angles. So, you've got Victoria with kind of this recent background of connecting with these mentors through a robotics experience, and then you've got Kevin as an engineer and Jonathan as a tech person, and Paul is kind of the all-seeing guru kind of character, I think. Now, but I mean, the problem is...
I try not to get in the way. Go ahead.
Basically, it's that there's all these there's this cognitive surplus in your community of these makers and these students who need that. Yeah, or is that the problem that we're working on? Yeah.
What do you think, guys?
Well, I think that the problem that we identified was, and I don't want to get too much outside of my sort of realm of expertise and stuff, but is that doing things sort of project-based, or that are that require you to pull on a lot of different skills and to learn things in a self-directed way because you need to learn something in order to accomplish something is much more exciting than having someone teach at you, or something that you're going to be tested on in your standard assessment and things like that. The way that we can prepare people for the future, and I think this came up in our discussions quite a bit, was that it was about future-proofing for the students. In the world of the future, the whole idea that you can go to college and get a good job is no longer like a given, and that you need to be creative and flexible and able to tackle new challenges, and that current sort of schooling doesn't do much to prepare people for that kind of challenge, but introducing them to people who do that kind of problem solving, and also giving them problems to solve, and then an opportunity to draw on resources to solve those problems is a good way of introducing that kind of thing.
I think one of the things I kind of felt about it was that when we're trying to set up these type of projects and the project-based learning and make these introductions, a key thing for us to kind of do is to take away the stumbling blocks and the things that make it hard for that to happen. And one of the most common ones is, how does a teacher make a connection with a welder, or a writer, a novelist, or a cartoonist, or whatever might fit the project. And a lot of times I feel that role, and I try to in my schools I try to match the teacher with the resources they need, or the an expert at the time. And
you're the IT guy, right?
Yeah, I'm the IT guy. It's a little untraditional approach to it, which I think is a good thing. But but I think that's what we were trying to do for every school, for every teacher, is how do we help take away the cruft around making those connections. And originally we were really focused on how do we supply resources, and we were thinking along the lines of sending kits or a bus or something else. And then we ended up kind of coming around to the idea that the human connection is almost more important than the resources, and setting that up really ignites something in students and in the classroom, even more than just sending instructions and a kit to put together or something else. No matter, even though I think those resources and things are very important as well, but that's kind of where we decided to focus.
Mm-hmm. So Monica, could you jump in here at this point and just tell us what you've heard and explain your kind of bringing people together around curiosities, and let's see where this conversation goes, if you don't mind. But you'll need to introduce yourself a little bit. I see you. Monica, are you hearing us? Monica, hello? Come on. What's going on? Monica Hardy, are you there? Yeah. Oh, is that right?
Looks like she's frozen.
Looks like she's frozen. Okay, Monica, try again. We'll keep going.
So
go ahead,
I guess to follow up then, like the human connection that Jonathan was just talking about is great, and that's kind of what I've done to a limited perspective in my own situation, but it's very limited, right? So I guess your project, the reason that someone then gave you a little something was that there's some kind of technological fix that you're thinking of, or no?
So the solution that we ended up coming up with is basically a matchmaking website that would put educators and makers and a broad definition of what a maker is together. So either a maker could go to the website and kind of explain through the system what they're interested in, and be connected with a list of teachers who have signed up, or the opposite way around, and try to kind of create those connections through that.
And we'd have to keep talking, but my feeling was, and Jonathan, you found a site where there is somebody who connects experts in industry with schools, but that's mainly through video and Skype, I think, as I looked at it. But
yeah.
But I think our idea is to actually have as many ongoing relationships as we can between makers in the community and teachers. At least that's my feeling about it.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, the matchmaking part is, and it's done with other sites and stuff like that in terms of like bringing people into classrooms and stuff like that. But I think it's important for there to be some kind of like work product or activity that not necessarily, I mean, they could be classroom visits and stuff like that, but an opportunity for people to share stuff that they've worked on together in the site as well. And that way other people can then take that on and remix it and then bring it into their own community, find their own welder or whatever like that, as well as having sort of the virtual meetings, which would allow it to be accessible, like a maker, like here I'm in Massachusetts and I could help out with a teacher in Kansas or something like that as well. But the idea to have a site where people can collaborate as well as be match made is also very important, and that they end up producing stuff kind of like Instructables, but it's much more living documents that then are used by the community as sort of conversation starters in.
I think the problem that started to emerge as we dove into it a little bit more was what's the best way to form these relationships so that they're productive for both sides. And Kevin talking about that idea there of kind of these projects that can be something that helps them gel around was important as well. So and I think that's still what we're kind of working on, is how's the best way to make these rich and ongoing or as powerful partnerships as possible.
I see Monica moving in the icon there. So I think we'll be able to hear you this time, Monica.
I
Good.
just keep going out and.
Right, so let's get as much of you as we can right now.
Okay, so
yeah.
I think one thing.
Introductions quickly. Sorry.
I'm Monica Hardy in Loveland, Colorado, and I've been kind of experimenting with a vision that we have of what if the city is the school. Well, if it was, and if you did it globally, that would be very chaotic. So we do need some kind of technology or something to do a Match.com to ground the chaos. And our focus has been on curiosity as our only tag and our only label. So to some of the conversation I've been listening to, if you want it to be sustainable, what you said earlier, Jonathan, about allowing whoever, call it a kid, call it a teacher, whoever, allowing that person to come up with the problem first or the curiosity first. Because then if you don't do that, you don't have that person who's just going crazy, insatiable curiosity. That's what the mentor loves. That's what draws the mentor in, that there's this person that's just crazy about the thing that you're crazy about. So there's sustainability with the mentor. And I think in the past what we've done is we create the problems because we're supposed to. We're the teachers. We have the Common Core and all this. So we create the problems that would be suitable, but then we don't have that hunger and thirst that not only feeds the learner but the person that's mentoring. So that would be my one, from what I've heard, is as much as possible have the whatever that's going to be studied come from the individual. Well, then you get the gamut. Now you've got the gamut of so much. My vision is that platform that we're talking about ends up being the person's head, 7 billion heads. But the thing that's used most right now, or could be used most possibly, is Wikipedia. Because, there's so many people that want to have these platforms where people connect, but we're missing that adjacent possible. If you want to zoom out, global, local, global, local all the time. And it doesn't have to be Wikipedia, but that's one reason why we've kind of thought Curiosime was close to what we were looking for, because they use Wikipedia, something that people have already crowdsourced on. And wouldn't it be greater if we all crowdsourced there even more? What if there was one place where, we had a curiosity, and when we left that place, we left what we'd worked on in regard to that curiosity, and then the tech did what tech does, takes tons of data, all over the place data, and makes those connections for us and prompts us to, you might like this mentor, he's in your town, or she's, in Australia.
So, yeah, team, ask Monica questions about her project here, because you've been developing this for a couple of years, yeah, and so you could get more specific as we go. But and it's different. It's not the same thing, but it's still, I think, interestingly related.
Well, I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can share just how it would play out on a day-to-day basis, just to jumpstart it until, because right now.
Okay, we'll come back when she can, I guess. Got a little trouble in Loveland there, but she'll come back, I think. So, I don't want to break our heads or anything, but did that make any sense, given what we're thinking about, or how? Like, it's like both a more individualized idea and also a bigger idea, obviously, but.
I'm afraid I didn't quite understand. Is her project around collaborating on existing content, like on Wikipedia, or creating your own wiki based on projects that you're curious about?
When she or somebody else who understands this comes back, they'll have to explain it. But it's something about using the coding system, the tagging system, I'm sorry, in Wikipedia to identify who you are, and then having an app that identifies your curiosities, and then that app would then identify people maybe locally who could connect with you.
Mm-hmm.
I did a very bad job there. I think maybe not. Monica, do you want to say? You were saying more how it would play out in day to day. You're back, I think. Yeah.
This is ideally, it would simply be a person in an echo chamber type space where they didn't feel like they were proving anything. No one was going to like or dislike what they said. They would share what they're curious about that day. It could change tomorrow, whenever. And again, the technology that can. Have you lost me again?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. The technology that can handle that much information, it doesn't matter, that we're throwing out a new curiosity every day. And then you connect by that. So until something like that is in place, again, back to what Jonathan said, just having the individual come up with the problem first, with the curiosity first, and then being facilitators and listening, and trying to make those connections.
Yeah, I really like that idea. I think that that the challenge is controlling didacts like myself. So how
do you need to be controlled, Kevin? Go ahead. Yeah.
I have this. Oftentimes when people approach me and they're curious about something, my first reaction is to tell them everything I know, and and immediately people glaze over, and they, it's not a very useful interaction, if you will. I came up with this idea for to try to counter that, which was to set something up where I tell people nothing, and so I call it ducky bots, and I do this thing where I give kids a bunch of rubber ducks and some motors and some batteries, and I say, your job, like these ducks are lazy, make them move. And they get some duct tape, and there's bits of foam and stuff like that, and they learn all kinds of things about physics and stuff like that. But I basically don't tell them anything. If they want to ask questions, I'll try to give them as little guidance as possible. But I love the idea of giving people a resource to explore their curiosity. I think that one of the natural reactions is to go where we've been before, which is to teach, is to lecture, and things like that. And I think that the core idea around making, which is what we kind of sort of were orbiting around in our thing, is that by having a project that you want to make, you have to learn stuff. And you learn stuff by doing it, and you might have to get somebody to show you how to do stuff. But I think that there's something really interesting here in terms of like marrying the two ideas of sort of free form, like here's something I want to know about, and can that develop into a project? And maybe it doesn't develop into a project. Maybe it's just a little one-off thing. It's a really interesting intersection there, I think.
One of the things that Monica was saying that really kind of struck with me, and I was thinking about this since that weekend, was we were coming up with this question of what's the motivation for the maker in the relationship, and why would they want to be a part of it. And I think Monica kind of nailed it with when two people are really curious about the same subject, and a more experienced person sees that curiosity budding in the new learner, it's really exciting. And to go off of what Kevin was saying, I'm wondering if there's the sweet spot of finding someone with expertise, but who is also, for the mentor, for the maker, but who's also who's learning the subject kind of along with the student. I think there's a lot of power in like the adults co-learning with the learner, not that it's a child, but whoever that might be. And I'm wondering if there's this, can there be a way for someone who has expertise in one area who wants to learn about another that might dovetail well together to then come along with someone else, and that can be a really powerful place, because you have that curiosity of two people really into a brand new subject learning together, and then also at least one of them, or perhaps both of them, who have expertise from different areas that are coming together. But I think that power of curiosity and people, it could be two or it could be multiple people, but people who are united by passion is really exciting and something that worth exploring.
So one of the things that Monica has worked hard on over the last 5 years, worth identifying and thinking about in our project, is doing daily check-ins. She's done a lot with video. I do it with writing with kids and audio, but doing daily check-ins. She calls it detox, and I've adopted her word. To identify your passion, to say, what are you thinking now over time. And I think what she was describing there is that so there needs to be a technology that collects that, the curiosities, the passions over time, and that somehow identifies, okay, here are the tags that we're noticing in your expressions of your curiosities, and here are some people who you might want to work with. But I don't know if there's an algorithm that does that, or we do that now. The
web platform that we sort of talked about could do something like that, and I think in addition to that, you could also collect little artifacts that might be little projects, little materials, resources, references, things like that are related. As people explore their curiosity, it would be sort of a hyperweb notebook kind of thing that could then.
Kevin, could I stop you and say, could you break that down more? Hyperweb notebook kind of thing.
Well,
Come on.
So haven't you read Vannevar Bush's paper?
Come on.
Haven't you read Vannevar Bush's original paper that invented the internet? The idea is that it's just sort of like I think when Monica was talking about it originally, I don't know if she can still hear me, but there was the Wikipedia thing, which Wikipedia is kind of that, although it's a curated thing, and it's kind of and there may be some need for that, but basically it's trying to be an encyclopedia, but the basic idea of a corpus that is interlinked and references other things and things like that, it's basically the same structural idea. So, but semantically, it's a little different in that it's oriented around curiosity. I like this idea of, rather than orienting it around ontologies and dividing it taxonomically around different kind of branches of the tree of knowledge. It's like, I'm curious about climate, or I'm curious about birds, or I'm curious about why I perceive color the way I do, or whatever the curiosities are, and then hanging off of each of those curiosities could be what people have learned, maybe activities that they've done to learn stuff. Maybe the teacher has come up with a cool activity in classroom, or with the maker they've come up with a cool project to build that would build sensors and things like that, whatever. And then the reason it becomes useful, though, is that it becomes searchable, so that when you identify your curiosity, you somehow get pointed to things that might be related. So there does have to be some kind of...
So you end up with a path of some sort.
There has to be some kind of classification involved here. Otherwise, you will never, the stuff will get lost, or you'll know the stuff that you've been involved in, but not the stuff that you're just suddenly started to get interested in this new area, and other people have been there before, but you might not be able to find it if you can't figure out how to search for it. So it has to be sort of searchable and classifiable and things like that too.
Paul, it kind of sounded like, when you were talking, I think perhaps this was the idea, but the daily detox seemed like a fantastic idea, and it seemed like something that everyone should be doing already, whether it's blogging or documenting what they're doing. and putting it out there for others to learn from. And I think there's two sides to that. Is one, can we have people who adopt that as a practice, and then on the flip side, can we take the data that they're creating from that and then make those links from it, or perhaps even pull from places that they're already creating the content. So, from social media or from their contributions to, collaborative media and other places, or if it's in a learning management system, or kind of wherever it is that they're creating artifacts of their learning, can we bring in what they already are making and then make connections to what it seems like they're passionate about, or areas that they don't even know that they would be passionate about if they were, given it as an option. So that might be kind of lofty.
Well, I guess that was a question I probably had for, well, I mean, any of you could answer the question. Victoria, where you are right now at MIT, it seems pretty appropriate, but I was thinking like you'd be mining social media like for the word maker, for example. Or is this like a human entered, like people are going to go to this website and I'm just going to say like I like composting and gardening, so I'm going to enter that in and I'll be a mentor for people? Or is it more like were you creating something that would, like Jonathan was just talking about?
Victoria, you want to take that on? But just anything you're thinking too, please. We just want to get your voice back in here, Victoria.
Sure.
Yes. Great.
So I guess I really like the idea of focusing like on sort of a tree that's based on curiosity instead of fields of knowledge. Although I think those do have a lot of overlap. Like if you want to learn about, I don't know, like the way your glasses work or something, that's going to be a lot about optics or something like that. I think those are actually very closely related, or more than like.
I didn't hear the thing, the curiosities as opposed to what?
Like fields of study. Like
fields of study. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think those are actually very closely related. It's just a matter of an application of a field of study. But I do really like the idea of focusing it around asking questions and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Can I say I think that the question about whether or not it's like gathering stuff from other places or whether it's a community, I think that gathering stuff from other places, I mean, people try to do that. I mean, there's like Hackaday for people who like hackers and stuff like that. But then it's kind of like it's a very passive experience because you're reading something that's been curated for you. You're reading a magazine basically, and where I think that it has to be something that's more interactive. It has to be a community, I think, and it has to be like you said, like I'm passionate about composting, and like anybody want to learn how to make stuff rot, like I'm your man. that would be cool, I think. And whereas I can quickly give you 15 links on interesting composting sites, but like then you're gonna have to go read them, and then you might say, oh, that's interesting, and then not do anything. But like, if you get somebody who's like, okay, now go out and get some worms, dig around the leaves, get some worms, and like, let's put this in a shoebox, and then feed it your banana peels, and tell me what happens the next day, and you got something interesting going on there, I think.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what you're saying. I think that's kind of where the teacher comes in, is kind of motivating you to pursue your curiosity. I think like, if I wanted to learn about compost, I could easily just go and Google it right now, and I'd have 15 links about it. But that's passive learning, which is not the direction we want to be headed in.
Monica, you want to jump back in at some point, or while we have you?
I guess just adding a little more of the vision is, if the city is the school, and now we've gotten rid of seat time and test scores, then you are spending 3 minutes sharing in a place that's gathering your data. Your curiosity is your data is your self-talk about curiosity. Mm-hmm. Gathering that for 3 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day you're spending with a group just to make sure everyone's known by someone. Now you've got 23 plus hours to go in the city into all these maker spaces or recording studios or library. So now it's like summer vacation all the time, and we're just trusting that curiosity will make people rich enough and deep enough in their learning. So I just wanted to add that so that, because there's definitely, the doing is so huge, you know.
So where does the app fit that you've thought about developing so far in that 23 hours?
A lot of places, but initially, because again, if we want this to go anywhere, it's got to be so simple. It's underneath, there's a lot of complexity, but it's got to be so simple. So initially, all you have to have is 3 minutes talking into the device, a wearable device or something. Then what the app actually does, though, is makes these networked individualism webs around each individual. They're the center node, and all the outside nodes are the curiosities or the connections they've made because of those curiosities. And then it's those, like, Paul, your networked individualism would talk to mine. It would actually look at all of them in the city, all of them globally, and suggest connections on a daily basis.
So that somehow happens through code?
Are they tagged?
Yeah.
It would be like a word recognition. So, like, here's an example, and it's just one that I always use. But say Paul and I, that morning or whenever, when we shared our self-talk, we were curious about China. So it told us to meet up in the coffee house or the library or whatever. So we meet up, and Paul goes, you know, we talk a little bit. Paul goes, dang, I meant China the country. And I say, dang, I meant China the plate. So then you have the option. You can just play the system and say that all the time. You know, you can just keep saying really weird stuff. Or you can realize that the better my verbiage is, the more chance the technology has to connect me to my tribe. The whole idea is to shorten the time between your intention and your action every day. That lag time is where we get the perception that if people are set free, they're going to be lazy and not do anything. So if the technology can help us with that lag time every day, being flexible to be able to change your mind every day, that seems to be what could let the true natural learning, insatiable natural learning, take its course.
So you're talking about sort of a hyperlinked salon, if you will. Oh, cool, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And given, I mean, if technology isn't up to the task, I guess you could also have people either themselves tag things, or you could have editors look at them and try to relate them. Maybe.
Yeah, over the last 5 years, we've done several iterations. So we started with the Google Doc, you know, and just sharing and connecting that way. We did video self-talks and, you know, connected per what people would say. That way, we were trying to get back again to the authenticity of a person, rather than in front of people you might say things that would please your parents or that would please your teacher, or, you know, that might be your only maybe you have 10 choices. We wanted to get to a thing that you couldn't not do. Then we tried chalkboards outside of a coffee house where people would just list anonymously their curiosities and then bring those inside, showing people that there's 10 people that want to build a tree house, you know, in the community. And then if they want to, at that point, help them connect to those other people. So yeah, we've tried several iterations. The brain is a software that's very similar to what we envision would happen, but at this point it doesn't really dance with other brains. But it is just simply you're the center, or whatever you make, but say the person's the center, and then all the other nodes just happen as you would talk or whatever. And then they would recognize, you know, China. They'd recognize that 2 people said China. The good part about it is, because you know it happens every day, it's not a big deal if we met up and it didn't work out. Nobody feels bad. You don't have that awkward social, because you know it's like Groundhog Day or 51st Dates. You got another chance tomorrow.
Very cool.
So we have 10 minutes left together, 12 minutes maybe. And I can't, I don't know. I'm very patient in this, and you guys have been too, in the kind of big talk and so forth. But getting a little bit real would be interesting too, like trying to find some examples or something. So I want to throw it to Victoria again. And what if MIT were run this way? Or a class at MIT, or
I think it would be very different. So like, as a computer science student, it's interesting to think about how that would fit in there, just because, you know, computer science isn't like a overly tangible thing. I guess it would be in terms of, you know, applying your curiosity about data or something like that, and then using computer science as a tool rather than learning about computer science itself. I don't know. I mean, I guess
that's an interesting question, though. I gotta say, because not everything is tangible. You know, not everything is makeable in the same kind of way. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you though. Yeah.
I mean, the only I have some friends at Olin, which is a college of engineering, but they're very hands-on, and I think they are a lot more, you know, curiosity-based, but they're very into project-based learning, and it's a lot more individualized. And I really like that style of learning. I just don't know how well it would work for all fields. So.
I think there is a realization of this in the real world in terms of meetups. So here in Boston, we have a pretty active, you know, set of different kind of meetups. They all are pretty much organized around meetup.com, and there are sort of broad topics that are a meetup. I have one that's people who are interested in making stuff in libraries, but like there's also robotics, and there's one that I belong to called Boston Artists plus Coders. So it's people who either identify as an artist or as a programmer, and so it brings really interesting people together, and they have interesting conversations. And sometimes there's a very like specific topic, like, you know, say that people are curious about, like digital currency or something like that. But other times it's let's get together, have drinks, and talk about what we've been doing. And so those kind of things happen, and the mediation of the meetup platform, you know, makes it happen and brings it together. However, it's a little bit flash in the pan, because you know, while I might have a great experience, no one else can learn from my experience, except for the people who were with me at the time, right? And so the idea of giving some permanence to that, I think, is the newer idea that I think Monica is kind of talking about, in terms of making it persist in some way, so that people can then, you know, like you said, find your tribe and continue to grow stuff there, right? Is that sound right, Monica?
I would say yes in regard to the connections, for sure. You know, in regard to the content, I think it's great to have places to store that so people have. But I mean, Victoria even mentioned, I mean, you can Google anything, and that's so yeah. Just having something that could maintain and sustain, and those connections could keep happening. You know, new synapses happening all the time, unlikely ones, tribal likely ones.
Right. I think the problem with things like Meetup, which are temporal based, where they have a specific date. Like, there's a lot of interesting people in my Meetup group and we always have a problem finding a date that everybody can make, right? But if you have some other kind of conversation that can continue to go on, and I have another group that I have a tribe that I belong to, which has open source hardware development, and we're very distributed. I'm in Boston. One of the guys is in Virginia. One guy's in Mumbai, India, and we do everything virtually. We do a lot of Google Hangouts and stuff like that, and we accomplish, you know, really great things together. And so I think that something that brings people together and maintains those connections is important. Like you said, the artifacts may not be incredibly valuable, except as a reminder and a way to bring new people in. One of the challenges that we face in my open source hardware group is how do we get new people in? Because they're not necessarily always involved in those hangouts and stuff like that, but you know, they do see our projects and stuff, but we're struggling with that. Like, how do we attract new people to participate in our creative process? Because we always would like to have more people participating in our creative process.
I feel like that's a part where machine learning can come in. I think what you're saying about, you know, suggesting new topics to explore or something like that. I think machine learning would be great at that. If you have, you know, 5 past topics someone has been curious about, you can easily predict the 6th one.
You can easily do what?
You can easily predict a new topic for them to explore, and, you know, a new group of people they can meet.
Is that related to what you're studying? Could you help us do that?
I mean, I'm definitely interested in machine learning. I think there are actually a lot of tools out there already that could do similar things, just in terms of, you know, how close are these 2 words together. I guess we would want something a little bit higher level than that, but that would be a good starting place.
Break down machine learning for me, though, because it sounds smaller than it is, I think.
Okay, so, I mean, like, what I'm thinking of right now is there's a way you can look at lots of documents and discover how closely 2 words are related to each other. And so basically, if you have 5 words that all appeal to this one person, that they're all curious about these 5 words, right? Then we can easily predict a new word based on what's the closest to the cluster of these 5. If that makes sense.
It does, absolutely. So let me just mention that one of the pieces of feedback that we got at MIT during the design shop was to check out Our Goods, and that's something that I will do and see further about that. I mean, perhaps, so if you don't know about ourgoods.org, it's a really interesting, like, the philosophical economic base of that work is such a thing worth opening up to.
What's it called?
Ourgoods.org. So so it's a barter network, and it started right after the economic crisis in 2008, if I have that correct. And people said, you know, maybe we don't have to pay artists. Maybe I can say, you know, bring me fresh food for the next 3 weeks, and when you bring it, I'll teach you how to tie knots. So it's kind of you barter your you know what you have. And one of the questions that seems to be answered tonight, but I think it's still interesting to think about, is like what the maker brings to the barter situation is clear. What the student-teacher brings is insatiable curiosity, right? But I'm not sure exactly how that gets defined. So in this model, but so just thinking about real world and meetup is one way to think about it. I thought looking into and talking to these people at ourgoods.org is another thing we might do. And Jonathan, can you mention again the one that you found? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but that was mentioned to you? It was in Texas somewhere. Oops, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry about that. I think it's called Nepris, Nepris, and it looks like it's focused on connecting teachers with industry experts, and I'll post that in the chat.
Cool.
I looked at that. That looked very similar to what our idea was for a design shop.
Say more. In what way? Yeah.
Just in terms of, you know, connecting industry people with teachers, it seems to have the same goal, and the website looked pretty good to me.
I haven't looked at it in depth, but I had a different vision of it, which was that it was less about just sort of connecting people up so that they could go off and be by themselves, but more of an ongoing conversation, and that's sort of the difference.
And you said community earlier too, quite emphatically.
And really build a community, and also the other thing about sort of hooking up people one-on-one is that while they might be able to, mediate something over the web or something like that if they're in disparate places, it still has a rich town, poor town, sort of problem there. Whereas, I really wanted to, enable, people in less advantaged communities to be able to take advantage of these interesting resources and ideas and stuff like that too.
Mm.
But I could be wrong about Netflix because I haven't looked at it that much. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything is as good as our idea. No, we just have to make it happen, man. You have to put it in a 3D printer. No, I'm sorry. So I'm getting silly here at the end. Chris, can you bring us down and assure us that it's okay to keep talking like this for a while before we?
Well, yeah, I had a
product. Yeah.
Yeah. I just had a.
Let's all address that question. Go ahead. Yeah.
I should have asked it earlier, but the process that you're using to think all this through, like I'm familiar with like the IDEO design thinking for educators stuff, and at this point in that, like you're at the ideation phase, and so I mean it strikes me as like you're ready to do the experimentation stuff. With the communities that you're in, right? So, Paul, your students in the Bronx,
point, yeah.
If you could find, I think you're right, like, can we find specific examples of things that work and analyze how those things work is another way to approach it instead of a systems kind of way, an inductive kind of thing. I always like to look at what works and try to, analyze why that works.
Thank you. That's really useful. Jonathan.
I think Paul and I were both laughing because during the weekend we went through all the phases of the traditional IDEO process. so now we just have to figure out how to use the prize money, I guess. But I think that's a great idea. Is how do we identify what does work? And I think in both face to face and then also like there are tons of online communities. Like Meetup is one where it bridges online and the physical, but there's tons of communities that sprout up and sites that allow these communities to come up, and what's the key aspects to successful, and I'm sure there's tons of research that's been done on this, but how can we take the ideas behind what makes a successful vibrant community and bring that to the introductions that we're hoping to make in this, I think is important. And then also trying to, like Paul was saying before, is trying to bring it down so we can make something real. And figure out like what corner are we going to bite off and start chewing on.
Kevin, what are you thinking?
I think my brain's full. There's a lot to digest. I think I was really inspired by some of the ideas around. The sharing curiosities, and I do also feel that I'm a bit attached to my idea of product, and so I think it's something for myself to look at to see whether that's actually relevant or if something really more meaningful can come out of just the sheer connections. But I am concerned that it wants to make we want something that will be lasting and can allow people to connect in a way that doesn't depend upon a lot of sort of either physical proximity or temporal convenience.
Victoria, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I also have a lot to think about after this. Yeah, I think there were some great ideas. I guess right now I'm trying to think about how I would imagine this fitting into MIT after you asked that question, and how computer science fits into all of this. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
That's a great idea, something like that. And I want to say that part of what I'll take from tonight are some of the narratives. Jonathan's narrative about the mapping the trees, Kevin's narrative about your open source development group, and Victoria, your narrative about, and there are others, but your narrative about working with the guy in the garage next door. And so just to echo what Chris said right there at the beginning on this last round, I think documenting some of those narratives would be useful to do as we figure out what this product is that we're imagining. And thank you all for being so patient. I mean, I think in this, there's so much more we could learn from each other. I just want to say that we're here every Wednesday night. You guys now are veterans. Come back anytime it looks interesting to you. Let me announce that next week, Nate Otto is Nate. I saw you in the chat room earlier. If you're still around, let me burn your ear here for a second. I think he is organizing a show for us around a case study that he just recently published called "Establishing the Value of Badges for Earners," which I found totally fascinating. And he's going to help us think that through a little bit next week with some people who are in that case study. And he did it with Christine Chow, I should say. You can just Google that and you'll find it. I'm sorry. All right, so we're going to mess with that next week. Thank you all. We're here every Wednesday, and we've been doing this several years. It was started as a channel of the EdTech Talk. It's the EdTech Talk channel of the World Bridges Network that Dave Cormier and Jeff Lebo set up several years ago. And this will be up on YouTube right away, and eventually I'll get it out as a podcast. Sorry, folks. Busy life. Brand new school. Thank you all, and we'll see you soon. Talk to you.
Thanks.
Oh,
Thanks, Paul.
I didn't say thank you to Monica. To Monica, thank you so much for all your contributions here tonight, too. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.